Hi everyone and welcome back to Elena's Toy Playroom. Today we're transforming this lovely LOL doll into this sparkly, glamorous Maleficent. Maleficent is the evil fairy from Sleeping Beauty. First of all, we need a little inspiration. We're taking this Funko Maleficent doll here as our inspiration and following this to get the right shape and the right colours for her horns and for her dress and so on. But we are going to make this one a little bit more glitzy. So I am using air dry clay here. It is easy to mould. It's a bit like really soft plasticine and it dries overnight without having to bake or anything. It's completely non-toxic and safe. Now make sure you have permission if you are using your LOL dolls to make a custom doll like this Maleficent, because LOL dolls can be expensive, so make sure that you are using if you have a duplicate or a double doll, then this is the thing to do. You can also get the LQL dolls that are basically fake LOL dolls. You can get them online on eBay and so on. They're obviously much cheaper but not nearly as good quality. Absolutely fine for a custom thing like this. Definitely not good for a collector of LOL dolls, but for something like this, they're perfect. Here I am making the horn, so I'm making her right horn, and I'm just moulding the clay in a kind of backward 7 shape or backward S shape to get the pointy end of the horn, and I'm just using that little picture in the top right hand corner as my inspiration, and I'm sticking it onto the LOL doll's head, which I've already covered all of that red hair in black air dry clay, and I'm just moulding as I go, and I will just keep continuing to mould until I get closer and closer to the shape that I want, which is very similar to that of the picture on the right hand side. Trying to make the end of the horns fairly pointy, but keeping the base of the horns really quite thick and fat. And then I'm just using a little shaper tool that came with the air dry clay to pat this down and make it mould together. But we are going to be painting the clay once it's dry and adding glitter, so I don't worry too much about getting it perfect, and if it's a little lumpy, that's okay just now. So now I'm just pulling some of that black clay down the side of the cheeks of the doll, just to make it look more like a kind of like a headdress or a wig or something like you can see in that picture. It comes right down to her collar. So I'm just pulling that black clay down a little bit further on either side of her head, and then moulding the other horn in exactly the same way as I did the first one. Just keep on moulding with your fingers. This is really soft and easy to mould. And just keep on playing with it until you get the shape that you want. Using an LOL doll that already has pigtails or something is actually quite useful here, because it helps just to build those horns onto those pigtails. It gives them a base to stick to, something to hold on to. So I find that useful, but it's definitely not a requirement. It's definitely not necessary. So again, moulding the horns here, just keep on moulding until you have the shape that you need. And it's starting to come together. It's starting to definitely look like a Maleficent doll. It's amazing how iconic those horns are, that as soon as the horns are in place, you can tell who this is supposed to be. Now, you can see that moving the clay around in the front has pulled it back from the back. Just play around with your finger, warming it with your finger, pulling it down and covering any bits that you need to cover up. And remember that we are going to paint over the clay, so don't worry if there's a little bit of that hair colour showing, that doesn't really matter. The reason I didn't just paint on directly to the doll was that I did want some texture here. So I did put a base of the clay the whole way around the head, and I will do the same with the dress just to make it a little bit more textured and more sort of realistic looking. Now I'm taking just a tiny little bit of this black clay again and pulling together with my fingers to form a sort of triangle shape, and this is going to be for the front of the horns. You can see that triangle coming down between her eyebrows, and that's what we're going to create on our LOL doll here. So just fixing it right in the middle of her eyebrows on her forehead, and then just playing around with it to get the shape that we want. We want that to come right down between her eyebrows. Again, I'm using the shaper tool that came with the clay kit, and I'm just using that to get a sharper triangle right in the middle and just making it all mold together so that it looks like it's part of the headdress. Now using that shaper tool again, but you can use anything. You can use a knife, a blunt one. If you're a child, please ask for an adult's help, or a pair of scissors or something, just to create some grooves in those horns. So you can see on the picture on the right hand side she has some purple grooves. We are going to make our grooves really glittery today, but we are creating some grooves with this plastic cutting tool. And doing exactly the same on the other side, and I will take the grooves all the way around the horns, the whole way around the head, so that we have sort of symmetrical grooves on each side. Doesn't have to be perfect, of course, but something that looks similar on each side, and I'm going to fill in each of those grooves with some black glitter. So now to start on the dress, I'm taking this purple air dry clay, which is a very similar purple to the parts of the dress that you can see on the picture on the right hand side, and I am going to create this dress by using purple the whole way around and then covering it with the black and using those little bits of pink to add a little bit of dimension. The reason that I'm doing this again is for texture, to make the dress thicker, more voluminous, and hopefully more realistic. Again, you don't have to do this. You could just use black and then use paint to paint the purple sections. But I decided to do the whole dress in purple underneath and then start adding the black on top to make it just a little bit, like I say, more textured, so it does look like layers of a dress, like a cloak and a dress underneath. So I'm just shaping this purple clay the whole way around the L doll. I am shaping it out at the bottom around her feet so that the dress sticks out a little bit, and also will help her to stand as well. So I'm just using my fingers to pull it out, nipping between my fingers at the bottom of the dress and also around the arms, and I'll be pulling out the top at the collar as well, so that the collar sticks out on either side, again a little bit like the Funko mystery mini doll that you can see on the right. Here I am taking a little bit extra of that purple clay and adding on some more for that collar, so that that collar sticks out nice and sharply. Just again pressing between my fingers and getting the shape that I want. And doing exactly the same again on the other side, moulding the clay between my fingers and creating another sharp collar. So now that I'm quite happy with the shape of the collar, I am just pulling that excess clay down from the chest just to cover the little bits below. But obviously again, we are going to be layering up with different colours, so there is no need to get too carried away with any little patches that you can see of the skin of the doll. I'm now taking this nice pink colour just to add those little bits, those little pops of pink like you can see in the Funko Mystery Mini around the wrist and around the very bottom side slits of the dress. So don't have to be too tidy here, we are going to cover things up with black. So I'm just putting a little bit of that pink on each side of the dress and around the wrists of the doll. Adding the clay is super fiddly at this point. If you have time to do the horns and then let them dry overnight before you do the dress, then you will have less of a chance of ruining any of the hard work that you've done already. But here I was just trying to be very, very careful not to ruin the shape of my horns and my collar whilst I did the other parts of the dress. So this is what it looks like before adding the black, and I'm now taking some bits of black to start adding that black cloak on top. And again, you don't have to be too tidy here. You are going to be able to have a bit of wiggle room to move things around. This clay is super soft and, like I said, really easily moldable, so I am just placing where I think I want the black to go, and then I will use some shaper tools to make sure that we can see the different layers underneath of all the different colours. I'm moulding the back of the black cloak just now, making sure that I'm covering up those bits of purple, but again we are going to be painting this again. This is what it looks like. I'm just going to tidy up the front now with a little bit of more pink and a little more purple to make it definitely prominent, and you can see all of the colours. Just tiny, tiny bits of clay you need here. This is the time to be a little bit more exact because we're getting to the stage where this is going to be the final look for the dress before adding the paint. As you can tell, I am definitely not an expert at playing around with clay. In fact, this is my first clay project, but that just shows you that you can be a complete beginner and still come out with something that looks good in the end. I've made many mistakes along the way, but they can all be fixed because this clay can be really easily moldable and the paint can hide a multitude of sins. I'm just using my tool again to drag the clay in the way that I want, because the way I added it with my fingers is just not the way I wanted it to look. It just shows you that a little bit of patience and manoeuvring and you can get exactly the look that you want in the end. So this is what our LOL doll looks like so far. Our Maleficent doll is definitely coming along. It's time to let the clay dry overnight and we can come back tomorrow to add a little paint and a little glitz and glamour. It's the next day and our Maleficent doll is ready to be painted. The clay is nice and firm. It has dried overnight and it's ready for a little bit of nail polish. I'm going to use nail polish to paint just because that's what I have in hand. You can use acrylic paint or any paint that you like, but I'm using Nails Ink black nail polish to give a nice glossy finish to Maleficent's horns and to her dress. I'm going to put a coat of black polish all over her horns. And when this dries, it will have a subtle glossy effect. It won't be quite as glossy as what it looks like wet. The clay does dry very matte, so I did want to give a little bit of a gloss finish to the horns. I'm just finishing painting the triangle at the front there and you can see what it looks like. It's still a little wet at the moment. And this is a time where you can fill in any little bits where you can see the colour of the hair of the doll. You can fill that in. I am now using an O.P.I purple nail polish to give a little bit of glitz and glamour to that purple dress underneath the black cloak, and this is a sparkly polish. I will leave the names of all of the nail polishes that I am using in the description box below, along with the name and a link, if I can find it, of the air dry clay that I'm using so that you can see exactly what I'm using. And now I'm adding a little bit of that glossy black polish onto the black parts of the dress again, just to make everything look a little bit more glamorous. This is also your opportunity to tidy up any of those lines that weren't quite right and just make everything look a little tidier. So now onto Maleficent's eyes. I'm going to cover up those blue-eyed beauties with a little bit of yellow polish. I made the decision not to paint the LOL doll's face in green because I went for something between the Maleficent Angelina Jolie version and this Funko Mystery Mini version. A tiny spot of red nail polish just makes her lips a little bit more rosy. And now it's time to have a little bit of fun with some black glitter. I'm using this Nails Ink black glitter for nails and I'm only using it in the grooves of the horns to really make those grooves stand out, and I think that just will give a really subtle glimmer of glitter. And here we are with glitter on all of the grooves. And our LOL doll is ready just to dry. This is a finished article. Sparkly, terrifyingly glamorous. If you like our custom Maleficent L.O.L doll, please like and subscribe to our channel for upcoming custom DIYs like Ursula, the evil queen from Snow White, along with all the princesses and Shimmer and Shine. See you in the next video.